welcome everybody to the wonderful, wonderful interview with the Patrick Stump of many different things, fame, Fall Out Boy, and also all the other things that you do. Me and the FOBAT admins are going to be asking a bunch of questions, but we're also going to be showing off a little bit of what we do, and that leads us into the very first part of our presentation. So this is just a very quick recap. What have we done so far? It's been a little while since we last sat and talked. We have contacted 209 people in total. And that, goes from super notable people like obviously Sean O'Keefe, David Safran, who was in the Audreys. We've talked with Siski from the Academy Is, Johnny Minardi, Nick Schmecka, Ben Murphy, Dave Hoffer, all those fun people. And also just like a bunch of different like companies and like MTV people, that type of thing.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, and so we've done 13 video interviews. We found a lot of cool things. Some examples are Fuck City had a podcast. I don't know if you knew that. We recovered
I did not know that.
I think there's 18 episodes. We recovered that. That was lost for a very long time. Obviously, we found the mythical PDI demo tape and plenty of other lost music.
That could have remained lost, you know.
Well, and of course, hundreds of photos and flyers that no one has ever digitized before, and some lost footage from various interviews and behind-the-scene videos, stuff that was like on MTV or Fuse or that type of thing. And just some goals for the future are like longer length content, so something like this, I suppose. And we're working on a couple collaborations with some people in the fandom, and that's pretty exciting. So after that, I will go right into, I know you said you said something of you'd rather it be lost, but we do got to talk about it. It is our most notable find of the year.
Sure.
So something that was particularly fascinating about all this to me is like, I believe we talked about this a little bit last time. Of you talked about like, oh, if you could find Bowie's demos or like whatever, you understand that fascination. And so that's what it was like for me, especially because it seemed so improbable considering that you do not have this demo. And over a very long, weird rabbit hole of talking to different people and getting sent to other people, we finally contacted Joe Edmonds, who that was the one guy in the band who still had the tape. Mike from Grinding Process gifted it to him at his wedding. So
wow.
That is why he had it. And that's yeah, crazy. So he kept it and he kindly digitized it for us, including the wonderful rapping on Rude Awakening, that song. Obviously it was my like low rent Drew first. I was just trying to and it was also this weird thing where cohesively Roger Cazalis had come up with this ska riff, but like didn't like ska, and so we had to figure out, and I did obviously, but we had to figure out how to like write a song around that or something. And so it became this conceit of just not. I don't know. It didn't work very well in my estimation, but I was the one that could kind of do the rap. So there it is. Well, I will say it is. I mean, I have more to say about it, but I will say now that it is definitely an interesting piece of music, and it's definitely, I mean, it's original, that's hey, I mean that genuinely.
It's very Back to the Future. That was very interesting music.
Oh, and also, here's some images for you. So we got the wonderful cover.
I drew that. I drew all that stuff.
Yes, you did. And also the individual patches that were put in.
Oh my gosh, yes, I made
drawn with a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, I forgot about those. I made hundreds of those, I think.
Yep. And so going on to there is the insert. We of course blocked it out, but your mother's phone number.
That's what you did back in the day.
Right.
That's what you did on your demos and stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I was all of these cute little details of like you drew all the patches and this was your first proper band and like it's very endearing, like just the dedication that you had to this as a project, like back then, because like
Yeah.
when I was 14, I wasn't putting that much effort into anything. So it's pretty cool to see that. And clearly you're cringing right now, but like I genuinely think that it's amazing that this survived all these years.
I know.
But it also reflects the music a little bit. Like the music is so chaotic. It's definitely something only high schoolers could make, but it's charming in that way. And even through like the chaos of it, like again with what I said about Bowie demos or that type of thing, you can hear the beginnings of your talent and like what you would later foster. And I just think that that's genuinely such a cool thing and why I love that we found this.
I was just so happy to be there. I was just so happy to have a band. It's funny, I didn't even like nu metal. No one would take me seriously. I was this little, I mean, I've always been little, but I was like tiny, this tiny little dude. And, trying to be in punk rock bands and stuff, and no one wanted anything. That was the closest I could get. So I was like, you got me. I'll do everything. I'll make the patches.
And you did. You definitely
I was
did.
so in,
Yeah.
just so grateful.
Here is the rest of the insert. And
wow.
You have, of course, you credit your rap that you must have been proud of at the time.
I don't.
And
that's
just a long thing about the PDIs, the coming together of 5 guys from Glenview, and a big thank you list of all tons of fun people. And there are a lot of names on that list. I'm not going to go into that now. Like we have questions about who some of those people are, but that's like email material. We don't have to worry about that.
I'm sure most of it was just friends in high school. It was just friends and acquaintances.
Right.
We didn't play PDI really barely got to play. We played a lot, but we barely got to, there was also a thing where if you ever seen have you ever come across it? I think it's on the DuPage Bandcamp, the DuPage County Hardcore Bandcamp.
Yes.
The Glenview Hardcore compilation. So basically, there was a scene of bands that was a little bit older than us, and they were all much cooler, like Lucas's bands. And I think a lot of it too was like also like trying to present some sort of trying to ingratiate ourselves with some of those much cooler bands,
Yeah.
But
funny enough, the reason that is on that Bandcamp is because of us. We found it on eBay and sent it to Dave.
Oh, nice.
He bought it.
Sick. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I believe also Admin K here, she owns it as well because another one went up on eBay and she bought it.
Oh, fantastic.
So
it's epic on the blue vinyl.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool vinyl. I'll say that.
It is. I think it was mostly Dave Rudnick.
Yes.
Pulled that together.
His I can't recall what his label he had was, but so on the screen now. So something you may be interested to hear is that we took a trip out to Chicago in July to actually do in-person archiving. Particularly, we some interesting things. We met Dave in person. We met David Safran in person. We actually met with Mark Rose at his karaoke night. That was really fun. We visited a bunch of different archives and also libraries. When we were at the Glenview Library, we had the idea to look at yearbooks to see if there was anything about these early bands. This is a page from the Glenview yearbook that, as far as I'm aware, has never been digitized online that mentions PDI at the Battle of the Bands.
I'm trying to show this one as the main thing. Yeah, Battle of the Bands.
And so the page basically is just talking about the Battle of the Bands that year. Here's 2 excerpts where it just says winning first place was the cleverly named band Public Display of Infection, which is very funny to me.
Yeah, we were so clever.
Yeah. Before the competition, each band was required to try out. Interact members chose 9 bands to participate, which is fascinating to me. That on this page and the next page, there are pictures of most of the other bands, but the winning band has no picture, which makes me think that like no one expected you guys to win.
Yeah,
Possibly.
maybe.
But another cool thing here, the bands that you thank on the insert are mentioned, like Ragged Independence and Diatribe, those bands.
Yeah.
And of course, those bands had members of the Imposters and other things like that, of course. And so there's the picture at the bottom, and there you are.
Holy smokes!
So, although
there's Roger, there's Dan. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, although it's a hilarious picture, just as it is, I'm more interested in the shirt. So, first of all, do you still have this shirt? And I doubt that you do. I would assume not. But you do have that one Patterson shirt, so I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, the Patterson shirt I got later. The Patterson shirt I had met up with Pete Shukas, like in, I don't know, in 2005 or something, and he had a box of them or something. So like, but stuff from stuff actually from the era, I think, is all gone.
I see.
Like, so.
Okay, and so another question I have about that. Do you recall what trying out was like for this Battle of the Bands at all?
Well, the thing is, so one of the things that doesn't really mention is that, like, so the Battle of the Bands was it was somewhat informal. They basically just wanted to make sure that you were going to do something.
Right.
It was really pretty informal. And in fact, I was in like 4 or 5 of the bands. I did it like every year, and like, well, not every year, but I did it the first couple of years, and I was in multiple bands for them. And so it would be a thing where you could like slap together a band and whatever, and pull together whatever you had, and
right.
So the audition process was really, I don't know, you just went into the gym and played maybe like the day before or something. It was pretty if
lax.
I remember right, it was pretty relaxed. They just mainly wanted to I think it was mainly for like making sure that it was like school appropriate. Like, I know someone wanted to do a Nirvana song with some pretty rough lyrics, like that kind of stuff. Like that was was more about that kind of stuff.
I see.
You could be pretty bad. You could be, and we were. I remember doing an AC/DC cover and just flat out not knowing the song. I was playing guitar. I didn't even really play guitar yet, that kind of thing. So
yeah, exactly. That's okay. Well, that brings me to ask. I mean, again, if you remember, did you do the song with the rap in it at
no
final show?
We never played that song. It was one of those things where it was kind of it was a little bit of it was an oddball in our repertoire. Anyway, it wasn't something that we were, one of the things, this happens a lot. It happened with that band. It happened with Fall Out Boy, is there's times where you're just trying to pad a recording with as much material as you have, so you're kind of using every idea, and they're not always your best ideas. They're not always your favorite ideas. So, there were, the first, the Evening Out with the Girlfriend wasn't even really finished. That's a long story. That one just kind of exists and came out eventually. But even Take This to Your Grave, it was like, that was all we had,
yeah.
When you hear the Jaka's song and what was the other one? Colorado song. That's the state of completion that we had anything else in. It was basically like the songs that are done are getting recorded. That's it. And so that song was like that. The ska song was kind of like that. And it was kind of like our last minute, we went in, we recorded with Sean O'Keefe, and it was like, we need something else. We need, we're paying a lot of money for this.
Right.
So we recorded it, but yeah, we never played it live.
Yeah, it makes more sense thinking about Sean O'Keefe of how he was hesitant when it came to Takes to Your Grave until he heard you sing with Knockout. Because now I'm envisioning his first and only impression of you was you doing this rap in his recording studio when you were 14.
Well, he knew I could. He knew I could play drums okay. You know, he had said like, you know, but that was the thing is I was unproven as a because we had played in. I played shows with his bands subsequently after PDI. That was my first band. I was in it for about, it probably wasn't a year. It's probably like, you know, it felt like a long time when I was a kid, and then in retrospect, it was probably only about like 8 months or something.
Yeah.
But then when I was in Grinding Process and I was in Patterson, we played shows with some of Sean's bands and stuff. So he knew I was okay at music by that point, you know. But PDI, the stink of PDI, you know, kind of he definitely remembered, you know.
I see. Okay, well, that's my questions for PDI, but our other member, Des, here's a fun little graphic just to throw on the screen.
Aww.
That's
that's so funny. My little drawings too. That's hilarious, man. I used to draw that kind of weird, I don't even know, borderline tribal driftwood kind of thing.
Yeah,
style. I used to draw that on everything. I used to all of my notebooks were covered in that. And I don't even really know what it was. It wasn't necessarily related to, it kind of happened to work well with the aesthetic of the band, but
yeah,
I was kind of drawing it irrespective of that. It was just kind of
it's very Linkin Park music video type.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Which is very not me. Like I don't know why that was a thing, but I will still draw that kind of stuff sometimes. I don't know. It kind of always reminded me of just like a thicket of like vines and things. I don't know. I love the animation.
Yeah, that's by our friend Evan.
Fantastic.
Okay, so Des also has questions about PDI, so I'm going to let her take over at this point.
Hi, Patrick. I'm Des. I'm the Archive's biggest PDI fan. I was very inspired by your Battle of the Band shirt, and I made my own.
That's amazing.
Infection shirt.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so was really excited when we found the tape. I was part of our interview with Joe Edmonds, and I just have a few questions. I know you're very clearly embarrassed that we found it. But I mean, when we initially contacted you and said, hey, we found this tape, were you kind of excited to hear it again for the first time in a while, or were you, kind of hoping that it was going to stay
No, I remembered
forever?
it pretty well. You know, it was one of those things where the thing for me was that it was, like I said, I was so excited. Because I was about 13 or 14 when I joined that band, and I had wanted to be in punk bands and hardcore bands and ska bands and things, and I was just too young and too like gee whiz or something, you know. Like I know that about myself. Like I'm kind of hard to take seriously as a hardcore guy, you know. But then I tried out and they said yes, and I was like just so grateful that and I was, they were all because James was a senior, I think. So everybody was older than me. It was much older than me. I mean, much older, but when you're a kid, that feels like,
Of course.
eons. And so there's kind of a thing where on one hand, it's embarrassing because it was never exactly my music. I mean, in the first place, while I was there, I was kind of like learning as I was going, like what, I was kind of picking it up because I wasn't really as into they were kind of a little bit more into the nu metal-y stuff, but then, we also would listen to a lot of like Earth Crisis and Bloodlet and Disembodied, and it's where I got kind of acquainted with a lot of hardcore that would like really shape that period of my life. And so I also have these very fond memories of PDI, but yeah, I mean, I was also kind of a little kid along for the ride and just kind of, so on the one hand, I'm like, and I can see that in the way that I'm like, sure, I'll draw all this stuff and I'll do that. I was just like, so, I was
just excited.
I was excited, and there was a certain degree of approval from older dudes, from older kids in music, and and I was just like, totally. So whether or not it was my style of stuff ever necessarily, I was just so happy to be there. So, a little embarrassed, but it's not the worst. I'm also
We all
yeah.
We all do embarrassing things at 14. I mean, it was like kind of your rite of passage to get into the music scene. There's going to be some embarrassing things here and there, but I want to talk about your verse on Rude Awakening. That's become arguably one of my favorite songs of all time now, especially your verse. So me personally, I have spent an embarrassing myself amount of time trying to decipher your rap. The tape itself is a little degraded, not the best quality.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask, do you remember any of the lyrics from your rap or any of that? I have a couple that I've deciphered, but not very
what
many.
You want? Get up on stage and taunt me. Not really. I remember the cadence of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing was basically, like I said, okay, so I was a ska kid. I loved ska, obviously. I still love ska. And I ended up in this new metal band. And it's weird because that you kind of skip a step there. I never got to do the kind of, well, I mean, they skip a lot of steps. I mean, there's really not a lot of relation between the two. So Roger and I were messing around one day, and he came up with that. He just started playing that riff, and of course, I, being a ska guy, actually started playing drums to it. And he and I kind of liked it, and then the band kind of was like, yeah, well, we can make a song about like making fun of it or something. And so it became this entire totally fictionalized thing about like, I don't know, some ska kid hating us or something. I don't know. So it's kind of, but then I was calling on all of my ska-isms, so like I was trying to I just remember, I can't remember a lot of the lyrics. I remember there's a bit where I do the Rudy message to you. I was just trying to reference as many ska things from ska ephemera as I could possibly fit into it, while also I was in love with the Grinding Process song, Screaming for Justice, I think is the name of it. Yeah. And
I was going to say, I listen. Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
No, you go ahead. No, go ahead.
I listened to Grinding Process quite a bit as well. Screams of Justice is actually a song that I've recently been listening to a lot, and there is a rap in that, and I was kind of under the assumption that you had been inspired by that.
I was 1,000,000,000% inspired by that, and I was trying to do that. And that was the thing, was that, and we were all kind of trying to, PDI really wanted to be Grinding Process, and we openly wanted to be Grinding Process, and it was like, well, they have true rapping, one of us should do it, and I kind of could, and so I did, and that was what I came up with, and that was my best true first impression at 14. So.
That's really interesting, because that was something that I had brought up to the team. I was like, I was listening to these songs, and I was wondering if Patrick was inspired by this. It sounded very very reminiscent. And then I was I was going to ask kind of about your inspiration for the verse, but you kind of answered it. You were just trying to pull different, inspirations from the signs.
Yeah, just ska stuff. Just trying to
different.
Yeah.
When we talked to Joe Edmonds, he mentioned that you guys did a Halloween show in 1998, and he told us that you stole a nativity scene from somebody's front yard and painted it to look "quote unquote" hardcore. Do you remember this at all?
So, I did not steal. This is a thing about me. I am kind of a pushover and a wimp, and I have been in multiple scenarios in my life kind of along for the ride on things and being like, oh no, no. And I was in the car with Roger, our guitar player, and one of his friends, and he, what's weird is I wasn't there for the theft of it. but I was there for like, he picked me up or something, and there was this nativity scene in the car, and he's like, and I'm like, what's this? He's like, we gotta go. I was like, what? And we drove by this house or something, and all these people were outside really like angry and like chasing the car, and I was like, what happened? Like, it was very confusing for me, and I was like, I was like, these people are really angry at you or whatever. Like they seem to, whatever. And he's like, that was their nativity scene or whatever. So then, but there were things like that like, I was never, I don't know. It's weird. I've always kind of been, always had a problem with this. I have that kind of anarchist punk spirit, but then I'm also kind of like I don't like upsetting people, and I want to be a good boy, And but then I would hang around like, at punk rock shows and stuff or with bands. And then sometimes people like young dudes for some reason just do chaos. It's just this thing. I don't know why. It's like, hey, let's break a thing. And I'm like, that I don't like this at all, but I would kind of have already been there. And so I would kind of like, I would go into this like, this kind of like, okay, I'm not here mode. I would never participate in things and kind of like, I don't know, find a way to leave or something. But that was the nativity scene thing. I don't think it was a nativity scene actually too. It was it was like a giant oversized Easter egg, I think.
Oh.
It was like a front yard decoration of some kind, but it was probably like, and that was the thing, is because he had this, how did he fit it? Did he have to like move? There were so many improbable things about it. Like, I think he had to drop his back seat, to like fit it into the trunk, So like,
just some huge lawn decoration. Yeah.
It took up a lot of space. It was so strange. It was like, but it was that kind of thing where I was like, please don't involve me in this, please don't pick me up with this in your car. So
we've heard from a couple people that Halloween show was very legendary, apparently. And we were very curious about these decorations that you guys had used. That Halloween show is one of the only ones that we have for certain that you guys played.
That reminds me, maybe there was an angel or something from a nativity scene. I think I don't know if this was related. I don't know where that came from, but somebody had like an angel, and I think they like, doing like metal stuff. I think they like painted an upside down cross on its head or something. And like, I think that became part of our stage stuff.
Yeah, that's what Joe had told us, is that it was painted to look hardcore and bloody.
Yes, and it was like, it looked like a horror movie or something.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Joe, I just wanted to bring this up, going back to that verse. He mentioned that when you guys went to record the tape for PDI, that you did not tell the rest of them that you had done a verse for Rude Awakening. He said that you brought it during the recording process and just didn't mention it before. Did you, what was the kind of expectation bringing that in?
That's not true. I don't, because I remember writing it with James we were all there together.
Okay.
And I remember doing that. I remember doing it at a where was it? Where were we? But I remember like I wrote most of it, but I remember like pitching it, in real time, kind of like.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, kind of trying to rip up that ska bit that they had already brought to the song.
Yes,
so that makes sense. And then the last thing I just want to ask is, so I know that you made, I think, roughly about 100 demos, and you handmade all the patches and the inserts. Like, how long did that take you? I'm especially very interested by the handmade patches. It's super fascinating to me.
I don't remember how long it took. I was just so driven. And this actually kind of carried over into Fall Out Boy, over all the way into Fall Out Boy, was that though, it kind of bled into it because me, Pete, and Joe were all kind of on the same page, was it just kind of like, it became my hobby or something when I wasn't writing or I wasn't hanging out with my friends and stuff, was like making flyers, making little zines and things, making patches, just kind of like promoting my band, whatever band I was in at the time, and trying to get shows. I was always trying to email people, trying to get, trying to hop on a show or whatever, Grinding Process. It's funny because by the time I joined Grinding Process, they were kind of like winding down. But I was like so excited, and most of the shows we played, I probably booked, like, because I was just calling anybody I could, from basically, from like Iowa to Indiana, just like anywhere that we could drive, hey, we'll play, and we didn't play a ton of shows, but I know I got a lot of them to happen.
It's good to have that like kind of DIY punk spirit. I think that's, a good thing to have, especially you mentioned you brought that into Fall Out Boy, and it's just super interesting to hear from that.
So the PDI thing was that too, was me just cutting up old pants and drawing on them.
Oh, were those old pants, those patches? It
was mostly pants and random shirts and things.
Well, I want to thank you for indulging my PDI questions. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to our other admin, Oliver. He's going to talk a little bit more about like the hardcore scene and kind of your roots in that.
Sure.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how you
my
doing?
name's Oliver. I'm one of the main archives hardcore dudes, I guess you could say. And I have a few questions about some of the hardcore features that you've done, of which there are quite a few. So first, starting off with Milwaukee hardcore legends, Misery Signals. You're thanked for, which is obviously your vocals for One Day I'll Stay Home. I want to know, one, how that came about, were you working with Misery Signals, and two, what your recording process looked like, because this was 2006. You guys were pretty busy touring. Both bands were pretty busy touring around that time. So how did that happen?
So Misery Signals kind of came out of Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, who was kind of Andy was never in Seven Angels, but he was like, super close friends with that band, and so when Misery Signals kind of started, we were kind of like right there. We were there for the beginnings of Misery Signals, and so it was always, they were always around, and it was always kind of, it's weird, like when I think back to the origins of Fall Out Boy, it's kind of funny now in retrospect, because I think a lot of people would be kind of surprised at how embedded we really were in hardcore at the time. It really was, a hardcore band that decided to do pop punk stuff. But so Misery Signals, because Seven Angels, we did the Project Rocket split, and what became Evening Out with Your Girlfriend, with Jared, who was in Seven Angels.
I was
he
in
produced
Rocket, so
yeah. So anyway, so then Misery Signals, it was kind of one of those things where it came up, and and of course I would say yes. I was actually thinking about this the other night. I was thinking about this song the other night. Actually, when I was leaving the Weekend Nacho show, I was like, that was fun. The Misery Signals one, I feel like I wonder if it worked because I was like not pushing, but I was kind of like just doing my thing. I was just kind of following my muse, and then I listened to it, and I'm like, I feel like I'm messing with their song or something. I don't know. When I hear it, it takes me out of their song. But anyway, this kind of just self-criticism. But I recorded that. I think I recorded that at my mom's house, in my childhood bedroom, with a like in between tour stuff just onto my laptop. Like I just, you know, because it wasn't time. Like we were definitely, like you said, we were just all touring and stuff, and it wasn't really an opportunity to make it happen. So I just kind of did what I could with my with my laptop.
Yeah, that's amazing. 2006 was definitely a year for both bands. I mean, there was a lot going on. So that's actually really good information to have. Outside of that, you're clearly a massive hardcore fan. I've noticed that you're super into grindcore. You got lots of good patches on your vest that you wear on stage. Clearly have some roots in that scene. I love grindcore. Weekend Nachos. Let's talk about it. So once again, how did that happen? Kind of. When did you start learning to do on-clean vocals? Because you do provide on-clean vocals for Drug Power Violence. What did the inspiration for learning on-clean vocals look like for you?
Well, I always wanted to do that, and I kind of did that on the Patterson record, on the Patterson album, which is on the Bandcamp somewhere. What song is it? Is it called Nightfall?
Yes, it is Nightfall.
I'm doing the screaming there. It was something that I always liked to do, but then when I started doing Fall Out Boy, it was kind of like, you don't get to do that anymore. It's kind of like, I know very little about sports, but I know basketball players like sign a contract and it's like, you don't get to ride a motorcycle because your body's too valuable now, like whatever. So after Fall Out Boy took off, I kind of had to let go of the dream of screaming and things. But Drew from Weekend Nachos, Drew has been around forever. I mean, he was we did our first tour with Spitalfield. First tour ever was with Spitalfield, and Drew was there. He was just kind of like hanging out and whatever. And so he's been one of our closest friends for a million years. And he started Nachos and whatever. And he was like, hey, we thought this would be fun. What do you think? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'd love to do that. And whatever. And then I get to be on a Weekend Nachos song and whatever. I couldn't be happier with it. It's like one of the coolest. For me, it's like, I've done a lot of guest spots on things, but that one, like, I don't know, that one makes me really happy. Like, and I just love, I don't know, I went to see him the other night and it's like, it's a blast. So.
Yeah, that was super awesome that you came out for that. We were all losing our minds. Pass this off actually to Lizzie for some more questions about hardcore features.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about your track, If You Could Remember, by Damnation AD. Love that band. Probably my favorite hardcore band. So thank you for getting me into them. How did your collaboration with Damnation AD come about?
Well, Pete is pretty much a diehard Damnation fan, and we had he had always kind of like, it's one of those things where because I wasn't really I fret to say that I was in Arm Angelus, but I was kind of like an auxiliary player, that kind of they called me in once in a while.
Yeah.
But I know that Damnation was a huge influence on Arma, that was a thing that Pete really wanted to like evoke in a lot of, like, especially the riffs, like some of the slower, sludgier riffs. He really wanted to have that kind of like Damnation. There's a specific kind of chord interval that he kind of like, he would always try to get at from Damnation, because he was just like so into it. And so, and Pete's known them forever, and they were always so cool to us. And you know, when we would come through town and everything. So then it was kind of like a thing where they asked, and I don't know. I said yes. I think that one I recorded in a closet. I don't remember where. I just remember recording it in a closet. I remember, like, again, I think I did it on my laptop, and I was like, maybe did I do it? Maybe I went somewhere. Maybe, but it was one of those things where it wasn't. We didn't have a studio, so I don't remember. Did Ken record it? Can't remember now. But I do remember being in a closet for it. That's all.
Well, interestingly enough, Pete is also credited for doing vocals on this track. I'm assuming it was like cleaner, harsh vocals, but
Yeah.
I cannot hear if he has vocals on this. I cannot hear it compared to Mike's. So do you remember how Pete was on this, if he was on it, or if that, like, what?
He's probably on it. He's probably a layer of the heavy vocals somewhere.
Okay.
But I think he is. I think I remember him being on there now, but I can't remember him. I can't remember where it's been, you know, I mean, like, I can't remember which, but Pete's in stuff that I remember. I think it's, what song is it? It's one of the songs on Take This to Your Grave. Somebody was telling me, like, oh man, it'd be so cool if you guys put, like, screaming there. And I was laughing because I'm like, Pete's in there. He's in the background there. It might, you know, like, it wasn't Saturday, but it might have been like Pros and Cons of Breathing or something where it's like, yep, that's what you're hearing. But
yeah. Well, good to know. We're all probably curious about that. We're gonna move on to some other music questions, but these, of course, do involve your things that you've done still. So Cupid's Chokehold, of course, you're on that song. It actually has 2 music videos, and to refresh your memory, you play the part of a robot in the first one. Do you remember how involved you were in the story and acting for it? Like, what was your, like, level of participation?
In neither of them, I was really involved at all. It was kind of like, you know, a lot of times, you know, I've got ADHD. All the time, actually. And a lot of times you're trying to be there, but you're somewhere else, you know, you're whatever. And so I always found this thing, I don't know why it never even occurred to me, but I never really got involved in videos. Any of them. I never got involved in Fall Out Boy videos. I would have suggestions in the early creative process, and then, like, if they didn't get used, I kind of just forgot about them, and then I would move on. But I never really, I was not. So anyway, I wasn't involved at all. All I remember about I think it might be the first Cupid video, was we went into, I had to fly out to somewhere kind of remote in, like, upstate New York or something, and there was this weird, big, empty house that was kind of run down, but it had, like, I don't know what the deal was with it. It had, like, furniture and stuff, but it didn't look like anyone had been there in a long time. And I don't think it was set that way. I don't know that it was, like, set dressing. I think that might have been the house. And I also remember that, like, they had all of these, there was this, like, weird, there was a DVD of, like, obscure Eastern European cartoons, and that was, like, the only thing that anyone had to watch. And there was a whole big crew, and we're all just sitting there watching that. And then I slept there. I slept on this, like, weird cot, and, like, I don't think there was heat or anything. It was a very weird shoot, because it was very kind of like, I don't know. You know, when you see like those that, like, there's that VHS series of horror films or whatever, and there'll be these ones where it's like someone goes into this weird house. It was that kind of weird house. We just, like, spent, it's kind of crazy that, you know, I didn't get eaten by a demon or something.
Okay.
So
yeah, that sounds scary. All right, so last question on this slide. Which Fall Out Boy song that has never gotten an official release is your favorite?
I'll keep running, and then on my feet, believe that I will grow. What was that called? I think it might have been the original Snitches and Talkers. Might have been. I think Pete cannibalized that title, but that song I've repitched many times. I've suggested that song for just about every record, and it always gets turned down. But I loved that song.
Wow.
So.
Oh, well, that's a great segue because we have plenty of questions about scrapped Fall Out Boy songs and lost songs.
Excellent.
All right. So we're gonna get into lost music. So Fall Out Boy and other bands. Yeah. So Fall Out Boy and other bands related to them have tons of songs that we thought were lost or, might just be unreleased as, happens. So this is just for the audience benefit. There's a small list of things that we've helped uncover. So that's being like, we've of course found some lost songs like Fall Out Boy demos, got New Jack's demo, 504 Plan demos, yada, yada, all that stuff we've unearthed, and we used mp3.com, SoulSeek, Wayback Machine, and just contacting people. And we found like the PDI tape and even like the demo for Teen Sensations by the New Jacks. Like we found that on our own. So that's pretty cool. But in part,
I do a little homage to Teen Sensations when I play when we play Thanks for the Memories right before. Usually when we play live, I'll kind of do that little measured tremolo kind of thing, or measured trill that from the beginning of that song.
Giving it out, so.
Oh, that's awesome. So
my little tip of the hat.
Okay, so moving on. There are a lot of songs out there that have been unintentionally associated with Fall Out Boy. So this takes us back to the peer-to-peer file sharing days. There's over 6 bands that were named a variation of Fall Out Boy that were around the same time that you guys formed. Yeah. So most of these bands, their existences were rediscovered through the mp3.com archives, and those archives don't even have every single band's page saved. So there could be like 50 Fall Out Boys. We don't know.
Nice.
But some of these Fall Out Boys were Swedish, Christian, and Texan, Canadian, like everywhere, not just from Chicago. A fun fact about these bands is that there's a Fall Out Boy from St. Paul that had a frontman, Chris Haloida. And then he went on to the band called I Voted for Kodos, and they ended up playing a couple of shows.
No shit. I didn't know that. Yeah. I knew we played with I Voted for Kodos. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a band called Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, he was in a Fall Out Boy of his own. So we're all sitting here like, I wonder what he thinks about that. I mean, it's just coincidence, but fans have shared rare or lost Fall Out Boy songs for years, but have we ever considered as like the fan base that these tracks could be by the other Fall Out Boys? So the existence of these bands are very obscure, but that's where the importance of our archival work comes in. Because lost songs in general are like one of the most sought after pieces of lost media. So that's why we're like very much like into it. So we have these 2 categories of songs that are not Fall Out Boy songs and songs that are. The ones that aren't usually belong to other bands misattributed to Fall Out Boy, or rumors of songs that don't even exist. And so these songs were likely downloaded on mp3.com and spread to other services. And, all of the metadata just gets scrambled. So we've counted 17 misattributed songs, and that doesn't even include completely fake songs. But we are going to hone in on one fake / misattributed, probably misattributed song in particular, called Second Emo. Now, this is a song we mentioned by name the last time, and it has no vocals. And fans have been claiming that this was a leaked Fall Out Boy song since 2003 on the Fall Out Boy message boards. Now, mp3.com existed back then, so they would have been able to look and see if it belonged to a different Fall Out Boy.
So I'm gonna look it up right now.
Yeah, we're gonna send a link in the chat if you.
Well, here I think I'm pulling it up on YouTube. I'll just see because I just found it. It auto predicted that title, which is crazy.
Yeah, so we just want to make
so I can tell you right away.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard. Have you heard of this before outside of us?
Is this it? Can you hear it?
I cannot hear it.
We can't hear it, but we did send a Dropbox link in the chat of the Google Meet, so you can make sure that that's it. But yeah, if it's an instrumental with no lyrics,
I see an instrumental. It was posted by 9:56 on YouTube 2 years ago. and I can guarantee you that's not us.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
We figured that it belonged to a Fall Out Boy from Ithaca, which has had a couple of like confusions with you guys, most notably. But we haven't been able to like ask them, for sure. So we wanted to get you to confirm it. Now I'm going to pass this on to Katie, who is like our like lost song expert, and she's gonna dive into more of the Fall Out Boy related mysteries. So off to you,
solve
Katie.
some mysteries.
Hi, Patrick. Nice to meet you. So I would love to preface and just say that this was something that we made internally to process all of the different versions of Fall Out Boy that exist in their many states. However, as Lizzie mentioned, in addition to these sort of misattributed songs, we've been looking into actual demos that you guys made. Some of those being Star 6-7, the Parade hiatus song titled My Songs, and Austin We Have a Problem. They've been sitting on YouTube for years now with very little explanation as to how they got there. And on the other hand, there's the very infamous MySpace whore, which you mentioned in an alternative press article that has become infamous in its own right.
Yeah, what was that? What was that song? I remember that name now, but I don't know that song. That song might not have existed. It might be one of those ones. I don't know what that was. It's one of those things. Pete was so loosey-goosey with titles that sometimes it is hard, especially just by title, to know what we're talking about. I don't know if that song exists, or if it was or if it had been applied to what was the name of that song?
I do believe that a song existed at some point, because in that alternative press article, it mentions lyrics about blood and hearses. So there are lyrics.
You get me to a hospital, you get me to a hearse. I wanna be managed so I can do the That's the one I was singing about. That was the one I was talking about. That's the song that I liked. That's my favorite. That's my favorite Fall Out Boy song that never got released.
That was my theory that was the original Snitches.
Yeah. Yes. That was Snitches. And I don't know if I don't remember the MySpace thing. I don't remember that sticking. It might have been something that was I don't know, because he never mentioned titles to me half the time. It would be, I remember flipping over Take This to Your Grave for the first time, seeing the copy, and I didn't know any of the names. I didn't know what songs any of them were, because he had just filled them in, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what this is, So, but if we're talking those lyrics, that would have been, I believe that was what had been Snitches and Talkers.
Awesome. You kind of just confirmed about like half of the research we had been doing on our own.
Yeah, awesome.
Yay! We have another slide following this, an image of a post, I believe, on MySpace. It was
my gosh!
Korean Tom Cruise.
That. Wow. that is Neil's whiteboard. Neil was very meticulous, incredibly meticulous, and he would have a whiteboard with all of the information as we were working on the record, and like all of the stuff. You had the BPMs there, you had the tuning, kind of, the length, because it was all he wanted. He wanted us to all, because I liked this too. We wanted to keep track of, like, as we're designing an album, what niches are we filling? So
interesting. All right. We have some more information about that later, but kind of my goal with bringing all this up was to form this concrete narrative about Cork Tree, because there's so much just floating around, and my hope was to sort of create a direct path that sort of explains kind of what had happened.
Okay.
So to start off this story that we have, in the summer of 2004, at 3 different venues across the Midwest, Fall Out Boy played a series of songs that had kind of become pivotal to this research. Among songs from Take Us to Your Grave and what would become Cork Tree, you guys played a song that was called Snitches and Talkers Get Stitches and Walkers. But not exactly. It was introduced as a new song, but it is nothing like the version that would be released on the Black Clouds and Underdogs version of Cork
Yeah, no
Tree.
chance. Yeah.
This song's called Stitches and Talkers because Stitches and Walkers.
And then you guys also played a song that evening in, I think, 2 of the 3 performances that was called "We Don't Take Hits, We
Yep.
Write Them."
This is like my B choice in terms of songs that I loved that never got used.
This song's called We Don't Take Hits, We Write Them. It's a brand new song. Let us know what you think.
So now, while We Don't Take Hits, We Write Them is a really interesting case, it falls into the same sort of category of a lost song that I was hoping to lead up to, but as we've discussed, it is in fact what is called "I Liked You a Lot More" before you became a MySpace whore.
What was
Supposedly, this is
what was the
title.
last thing that was called? We don't take hits. Oh, we don't take hits. We write them.
We Don't Take Hits, We Write Them, yes.
Okay.
So this all kind of started for us when we first read this alternative press article. And we were wondering that, considering MySpace Whore was never actually released, how did the interviewer know about the lyrics of the song? Because it mentions...
but okay, but this is also anachronistic because there's something I'm confused about here, because Young Turks, that vibe was the other one, was the other song.
We Don't Take Hits.
No. So
Oh.
so We Don't Take Hits was by myself on the street out in front of your house again. That one's We Don't Take Hits. And then what I thought was Snitches and Talkers was I'll keep running and then I might be believe. And that one was inspired by Young Turks. So I'm guessing at some point maybe that was called MySpace Whore, I guess. But I don't remember it being called that. Like anytime that we had talked about it, it was Snitches and Talkers. So if it had been, I mean, the thing is that whatever article this was from, we probably had met with them and played some demos. That was a thing that was kind of normal for while you were doing promo ahead of a record. And we definitely demoed it. So, and I can only guess that was the name that was attributed to it on the demo. But by the time we were by the time we were working on Cork Tree formally and the song was kind of getting suggested, it got cut pretty early, but it was being talked about as Snitches and Talkers.
Interesting. Speaking of demos, so Pete has claimed that Fall Out Boy came into the studio with approximately 20 songs from Under the Cork Tree, and eventually they were narrowed down to the 13 that we had gotten, plus the later bonus tracks.
Yes.
Some of these have since ended up online on YouTube, as I mentioned.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how this may have happened?
I have no idea how that happened. I have no idea how any of it ends up anywhere. But I mean, we did have, I mean, so we went into Rosebud Studios trying to work with Sean O'Keefe, and it didn't work out, but we went and demoed a bunch of stuff, and we demoed the 20-ish songs to kind of pull together what became Cork Tree. And we had those demo CDs kind of knocking around, so that they got around, they got heard. So I'm sure it was one of those things where we were sending out some of these to producers. We Neil, before Neil said yes, we couldn't really find a producer. It was funny, Sean said no. he was our friend, and he did Take This to Your Grave. He's like, I don't really want to do this. And we were like, no, really? And Island also was like, we don't want to work with Sean. He's a kid. He's unproven. And so we kind of brought these demos around to like everybody. We brought these demos around to any producer that we could find. And so it stands to reason that, somebody had a copy somewhere and, whatever. But yeah, I don't know.
So to start in the slide you saw earlier, this was found on Dansa, also known as Korean Tom Cruise's live journal. And we reached out to him, and he actually explained here that stereo specifically was originally the old chorus of what became Gin Joints. Do you happen to remember what this original chorus was?
Stereo, yeah, that was Gin Joints, yeah. Well, it was a bunch of songs. It had been like, it was like parts of like 3 other songs that got like stapled together.
Okay. What were those 3 other songs, if you remember?
I don't remember. I mean, one of them was called Stereo. Oh
no.
Trying to think now. I don't know. You know what's weird is I don't know that the other parts got demoed. Because I remember the I've got headaches and bad luck that they wouldn't let you know. That part I don't think ever made it into a song. It was just kind of a part that was floating around that was like maybe gonna be a song. There's things like that. So I don't know that it was 3 songs that like fully existed, but there is somewhere a demo of Stereo that's of Gin Joints that has a completely different chorus and a completely different bridge, maybe. I don't know, but whatever. I know it had gone through a lot of iterations. That one was like our Frankenstein song that had been workshopped to death. So
Interesting. I didn't really think that would be the one to be Frankenstein.
Yeah, it was weird because it was, in my experience, those songs never really succeed. They're never the song that everyone's like, that's the song, where it's like, but there was just this thing where we had all these ideas that we really liked that needed to go somewhere, and we couldn't, and so we kind of formed them into one song. And we really worked it really hard. We really wanted it to work, and whatever. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
So I guess the last question that for this slide that we have, and is probably the question on all of our minds, so that we got that confirmation about snitches. Do these songs still exist somewhere? Both unreleased demo tracks that kind of never made it past, like We Don't Take Hits, as well as maybe the demo versions of the songs that would later be recorded and released?
They exist somewhere. I have no idea where. That's the thing, is going into this 20th anniversary release, I know there was some great effort to try and find them. And we came up empty. So, but I know that they're out there somewhere. Because we did, but it's one of those things where back then I don't even think we had hard drives and stuff. It wouldn't even be on computers. It'd be on CDRs somewhere. And so I don't know, they're buried in a CD collection somewhere. But I mean, they did definitely exist. They're out there, but I haven't found them.
I just want to say that I called it, that you guys did try to look for those demos, and there was something, I thought there might have been legal problems, but everyone was like, why aren't the demos on it? I knew you would have tried looking for them.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where,
put it out there.
I mean, like, whatever, it's like it's something that, it's something that's amazing to look back on, and I would love to share them with people, but I don't know where they are. I would love to find them. I mean, I did that song Exploder, and they wanted to hear the original Sugar, and we had demos of Sugar. We had a couple demos of Sugar that were that original version, and I would have loved to have shared that, because it was so strange, from where it started to where it ended up. But I can't, because I don't know where it is. you know I know it's not lost media; it's misplaced media. You know, so
Misplaced media, yes.
yeah,
Hopefully it'll turn up somewhere.
somewhere.
I'm hoping. Perhaps it's another situation like the mp3.com barge situation.
Yeah, the only problem there is that mp3.com was like obligate online, right? So it would have been online somewhere. The thing is that unless someone bothered to digitize it, it wasn't something that we posted anywhere. It wasn't something that like, so unless one of the producers that we sent demos to or you know, whatever, unless they did that for some reason, I don't see why it would be online. Yeah, at least not in its entirety. By the way, I'm laughing because I went through all of this kind of stuff with Prince stuff because I was like, I'm such a Prince fan, and he has, you know, he had the Black album that was released and then unreleased, and then he had this whole album he did with The Time that he shelved. Like, so trying to find all that stuff, it's exactly like this, you know. It's like you're kind of beholden to whoever bothered to post it somewhere. So.
And then sort of transitioning from there. So in a few interviews around like what we kind of discovered was 2004 to 2006, Pete mentions this being interested in releasing Snitches / MySpace Whore. And in some of the interviews seem to imply that that might actually happen. What, if anything, may have caused this to go through?
I don't know. That didn't
That's okay.
sound that didn't sound like anything. I mean, I should say, yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know where that would have come up. I would love to release either of those songs. Those are like my two favorite songs that got cut from the record. In fact, I remember being really pissed off because I really liked those two songs and Music of the Misery. And I didn't really care for whatever the one summer song is. Is that I've got a back alley and a bad idea? Is that one? I didn't like that one as much as those other songs, and I was like so bummed that those songs got cut and that one made it. So I would love to release that someday, but I don't know. To my knowledge, there was never any real traction on doing that, but I don't know.
Okay, and then this actually leads to my next question. So around the release of the second version of Believers Never Die, you guys re-released Bob Dylan, which I think Joe had mentioned was a song that had been workshopped around the time of American Beauty, American Psycho,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
made it on as like a B-side.
Yes.
How do you guys decide which older songs to release in like these compilation forms?
Well, honestly, Bob Dylan was one that was in the best, most completed state. I mean, that was a really easy discussion because I had written for American Beauty. I think I wrote like something like 80 song starts, like not like not full things, but you know, those are the demos that if that, you know, I don't know where that is. That's on some old computer somewhere. I don't have any of that stuff, but I wrote like between and I did the same thing for Save Rock and Roll. I wrote something like 80-ish songs, but like not completed songs, you know. So like various states of demos of mine, you know, and Bob Dylan was a song that got all the way to completion. We fully tracked it, you know, everyone's on it. You know, that's one of the things too, is that like some of these demos that leaked, Invisible Man,
Pavlov, right?
Pavlov, thank you. Yeah. And I want to say maybe well, I don't know. I know for a fact Pavlov, that's just me. The band never even played that song. You know, like whatever. The first time we played that song was on stage at on that tour. But a lot of these things were just like full on demos that like hadn't ever really been completed. And so yeah, Bob Dylan was one that we had got all the way through and everyone actually played on and everyone did. So, and it was like all we have to do is mix it and now it's a song. So we chose that one. But there's not often songs that, usually we get to a point where we know that a song's not going to make it on the record, and then you just kind of, for sake of time, you don't finish it. And so, like on Stardust, there were a couple songs that we got pretty far into and everybody's on, but there's like not full vocals and like not full, like whatever, that kind of stuff that like you couldn't release because you would have to do something to them. So that was basically it with with the Bob Dylan choice, and it was a good song. I mean, I liked that one a lot. I don't know why it didn't make the record. Sometimes that stuff I get voted down and I don't know why, but
I do just want to jump in real quick and mention that you would probably find this very interesting. There's a band called The Zeros that they took the really crappy, like the video of you guys playing We Don't Take Hits from like 2005 or whatever, and you can barely hear what you're actually saying or what the notes are or anything, but they took it and tried to interpret it and made their own song. Like they made a cover of it. So that's on Spotify or any other streaming, I believe, if you ever want to check that out.
Oh, that's amazing.
I just thought you'd find that cool. Yeah. All right.
Crazy to hear. I remember that one, but
yeah, well, thank you so much for this part specifically. For us, this album has like so much, I guess, as you called it, misplaced media that lives on in the fandom in ways such as the Zeros interpretation, and also just on YouTube, and has since probably been downloaded from YouTube so many times now. And seeing Pavlov release was kind of wild. And I really do hope that we can help find these songs from Cork Tree, because
of course,
especially it's the 20th.
I'll look through. I'm still looking through stuff. It's honestly going to be someday. I'm going to find it in like a pile of things in a storage space somewhere. It's like that obscure. It's not like, but it's out there.
It's out there. Now, though, I'd like to pass it to Amal with something honestly pretty different from what we had just been talking about.
Okay,
yeah, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Hello. So I heard while recording Infinity on High, you actually lived with a member of my chem.
Yes.
Bob, may he rest in peace.
Yes.
And I was wondering, like, what was that like? Because you've talked about it a little bit. They must have been recording the Black Parade at the time. You were recording Infinity, seminal albums for the scene. There was a barbecue I heard about. So did you all share demos? Like, what was that like?
What's weird? We didn't talk music like at all. It was really, and I think that was what was so funny about it too when Black Parade came out, because it was so conceptual and it was so the visual, and the suits and the hair and everything. But while they were making it, we were barbecuing, and I remember going. I'm obviously nerdy, but I'm a different species of nerd where I'm just really into music stuff, whatever. But Gerard is so artistic, and I remember going to the mall with them one day, and they got like they were getting figurines for some sort of game that I don't know about. I don't play, but it was like, it's like some sort of like expanding board game kind of thing that you can get figurines and then you're supposed to paint them. And so Gerard would just be painting, like I remember Bob like grilling and Gerard like, like with like one of those little tiny, eyeglass kind of things, painting these tiny figurines, and amazingly. I mean, he's a brilliant artist, but it was it was very just human stuff, just normal, 20 some odd year old dude stuff of just like being guys and hanging out, and I don't know, laughing about whatever was the Will Ferrell movie at the time. It was that kind of thing. It wasn't really, we didn't really talk music. And that was really funny too, because I didn't realize, it's funny you said that, because I didn't realize that until like an hour ago. I was doing an interview for something else, and it came up. My chem came up, and I was like, oh yeah, and I was sleeping on their floor, and I'm like, oh shit, they were making Black Parade, weren't they? That's what that must have been, because I was making Infinity, and I never, even at the time, I didn't connect it. It was just like, oh yeah, my buddies let me sleep on their floor, whatever. So
Wow, wait, so you didn't have a bedroom? Did you just sleep on the floor?
yeah, well, there wasn't an extra room. It was kind of like,
Wow.
it was kind of, so what happened was these were the extended stay apartments, the Oakwood apartments in Burbank, which were near all the recording studios. And they're just, that was, there was a screw up with mine, because I was going to stay there to do pre-production on Infinity, and something got messed up. But I was in LA, but needed to record and needed to be there for a long time. And I think I don't know how it came up. I didn't even ask. It was a thing where somehow I think I was talking to Mikey, and I said something about like not having, he's like, oh, you just got into town, you want to hang out? I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I can stay, because I don't know I don't know where to stay. And he's like, oh, you can stay here, whatever. It was as simple as that. So, but yeah, I think I just had a sleeping bag on the floor, whatever. And oh,
So you were maybe too frugal to get your own place even after the Cork tree money?
yeah, I'm also really oblivious. Like, I don't know. There is a degree of frugality, because I mean, my mom's an accountant, so it's still like in there. But I also just like don't think sometimes of like, oh, I could pay for a thing. I could totally get that, and I could totally like have a bed or something. It was, I kind of just, and at the time I knew that I had to be nearby the studio, and it was the thing where once I got once they offered, I was like, that sounds fun. Yeah, sure, I'll hang out with you guys. I'd love to sleep on your floor, like whatever. And so, yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks. Now I'll hand it off to Joey.
Hi again. That's really funny. So again, another seemingly completely unrelated question. This might be more of a question for Pete, but I'm gonna ask you it anyway, just in case you know. Pete once teased an Infinity on High animated movie. Other than promotional art, nothing of this has ever been released, despite there being a full script. Would the script and any other unused materials ever be released to the public, and why was it canceled?
Was this Infinity?
The post where he posts about it is on screen right now.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound familiar at all. No dialogue? I know there was a moment, there was like for like 2 seconds we were trying to do Fallout Toy Works as an animated thing, but that was going to have dialogue and stuff. And that was later, right? That was Cork Tree. So, or yeah, that was later. Foley. That was Foley. So I don't know anything about an Infinity animated thing. One thing about Pete and I that it is fun, is that we definitely don't always tell each other artistic things. Like, we don't always fill each other in. So like sometimes there'll be, he'll show up to the studio and I've changed things or something, like whatever, and it surprises him. Oftentimes I show up on stage and I don't know that I'm popping out of the floor, or I have to wake up in bed or whatever, or I'm going to be 40 feet in the air. Like, it's always a surprise. I think this is one that he must just not have told me about. I'm for real. It doesn't sound, because that doesn't ring any bells.
All right. Well, glad I asked then, just to be sure. That's a question for another day, I suppose. I'm going to pass it over once again to Oliver for the next question.
All right. So yeah, continuing on with our theme of miscellaneous questions that we really didn't have anywhere to put. We have these photos of this merch. We have a few questions about
Joe
it.
Troman designed the one on the left. He made it in Photoshop or whatever. I don't know the one on the right. I have no idea.
We also want to know what it was exactly. We've heard it was a t-shirt. We're not
One on the
sure.
left was the one on the left is a t-shirt. It was our first ever t-shirt.
Do you know what the one on the right is by chance?
It looks vaguely familiar, but I don't. I think it's a t-shirt.
I will say that these images were part of one image. One of Pete's friends that we're friends with, had this image on his computer just titled "First Fob Merch," and he sent it to us and was like, "I have no idea what this is. I don't know where I got it." So
Maybe that's
we were
the back
thinking,
of it or something.
yeah, we were thinking it was the back of the shirt.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that the thing on the left, that was our first shirt ever.
Do you know how many were made?
I don't. I have no idea. I don't know. I remember that my only one that I had of it, I lent it to somebody and they cut off the sleeves. So I don't, but that's all I know. I think, yeah, I don't think I have one of it. So
That's super good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. More miscellaneous questions. So whatever happened to Punk is Dad? Supposedly, you wrote on that, according to Pete, in an interview. This was, if you're unfamiliar, this was apparently a pilot for a show that Pete was trying to get greenlit about like a dad that's also like a musician. I mean, basically his life. And he claims that you were working on it with him in an interview.
I was gonna. He sent me the pilot. I didn't work on the pilot though. It was a thing where like after the pilot, if the pilot got picked up somewhere, did I want to work on it? And I was like, sure, but it never did. So I never did anything with it. But I remember seeing a pilot at some point.
Yes. Yeah, that pilot, there's a few minutes of it that somehow got online. We don't really know how, but the full thing is like not online, and that it was kind of tenacious of like the reason that, you know, like it's not online is because like, oh, someone still owns the right, you know, MTV or whatever still owns the rights. They're never going to release that, whatever it is. But we figured if you were working on it, you might know more, but I guess you're not. So
yeah, no, I never. It was one of those things where I was brought in after the fact. It was never. It was not. That wasn't something that I worked on. That I actually did any work on. But
okay. Keeping in theme with TV and film and that type of thing, Moustachette. So the website for Moustachette is very detailed. Like there's a lot on there.
Yes,
and there was a lot on the socials and the promotion. There was a whole separate website tied into it. Was there like a continuation plan for it?
So
it seems very big for what it was.
Yes, yeah. So what happened was I had basically went like, I like film a lot. I want to try something in film, right? And so I tried to sit down and write something and, you know, pull together something. I never intended to release it. It was more just kind of like me figuring it out, you know, figuring out like my first dry run at like, you know, what that is. And there were a lot of people involved, you know, there's a lot of people involved in film. And I don't know that I made that clear to everybody that I wasn't even thinking of putting it out. And so while we were still working on it, somebody from the production had started doing that, just kind of just of their own accord and whatever. And which is a thing that you would totally do if you're trying to like put together a project. But that wasn't what I was doing. I was literally, you know, that's like me. It's not even a demo. That's like me that's like my first kind of run at it. And in fact, because of that, that was kind of one of the reasons why I kind of walked away from it. I didn't finish it because I realized that that for everybody else involved, this was like, you know, this was work. And for me, I was like, oh, I was just messing around. I don't, you know, and so like, I was not involved in the final cut. I wasn't involved in the mix of any of the music, anything. Because it was like, I felt really bad because I was like, you know, I must have been unclear on what I was shooting for. I was just trying to figure out, it's like day one of, of like trying to make a movie. Was not me trying to put out a movie. So all of that stuff was other people. None of that was, everything that was on, the characters and the ideas of, I'm like, I didn't have any, I wanted to have this tiny little story. And I don't think I've ever seen it. I didn't.
Oh wow.
Because I didn't. It was not. It didn't. Nothing against anybody on it. It was just. Like I said, I think I blame myself for not being clearer. That I'm like, oh no. I wasn't going to put this out. This is.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out, like, literally, like, I didn't know anything. I'm like, I want to know what happens when I storyboard. Like, what does that look like? I want to know, like, what happens when you point a camera here. I want to know what happens when, an actor does this, this kind of blocking. So it was more me just experimenting with, like, and I don't know, it was one of those things where the writing was the least of it, where I was like, I had wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. I know I have to go soon, but I was like, I wasn't even trying to write a movie or anything, or direct anything. It was just like, literally, I wanted to act, and I was like, this is a way for me to, like, figure out what everybody does on a set, and maybe I can, like, bring that understanding into acting or whatever. But
yeah. No, I get it. I mean, even if you're, the final product was like an accident essentially. I feel like people at the time when it came out were probably really appreciative. There was something new to look at. This, I mean,
right.
Like,
well,
I'm sure
yeah.
it was, yeah. But
I don't know. It actually kind of
pause,
scared me off of doing anything since then. I've thought a few times about writing something or making something, and I was so bummed on my like inability that I haven't gone back to it.
I see.
So
Well, maybe dip your toes in one day.
someday, who knows?
This will obviously all be cut out of the final product.
No, Dress to Thrill was not a potential name for the band.
Oh, wait, really?
I don't think so. I'd never heard that name.
Okay, well, we'll show you because you wrote it. So
Okay.
That might have been a joke. That sounds like me being sarcastic somewhere.
Go ahead, Kay. Go into your.
All right. So obviously, with like the first and second shows, very important. The first show being at DePaul University at Cortell U Commons, and that was like the first show. You didn't have a name for it, but do you recall at all about like how that show went?
It was very sloppy. It was very short. We only had 3 songs. I just sang. I had never sung really, I sang a couple times in like high school things, but I'd never really sung in front of people as a performance thing. And then I was just singing, and I was very anxious, and I had a little microphone and, stand, and I just stood there. And I remember we played with a kind of like math rock Midwest emo band called Stillwell.
Yep.
And I remember, all of our good friends were there. Money Mustofi and Jim Sevcik and Isaac Gautzerlevy, all the guys that have been around for all of our early stuff. They were all there. I think Dead Stop was there, and we were terrible, and I don't know. I didn't think much of it.
Yeah. Did you actually play under the name Forget Me Not?
No, I hated that name, and I fought against it. I remember that Pete had kept suggesting it, and I had kept shooting it down. I was like, no, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that. And I even remember asking somebody else at that show, like, kind of like fielding the question. I'm like, what do you think? Like, you know, somebody while we're setting up, like, hey, what do you think of the name Forget Me Not? And like, I don't know, you might suck anyway. It's like, so, you know,
that's very great. Do you supposedly from Money Mustofi himself? He said that the first like band practice was recorded like on video. Do you recall that at all?
Oh, you know what? I do remember that. I remember Ben Rose maybe recording it, or maybe having a camcorder or something. I don't know. I'm sure that's long gone, but I do remember somebody having an idea of like, oh yeah, we should record this for posterity for some reason, which was really funny because, you know, Pete was in a real band as far as we were concerned. So this was 1,000,000,000% a goofy side project. So I don't think any of us took it very seriously, but yeah, I do remember. Yeah, I vaguely remember that being recorded.
I will say, Money says it in the actual Take Us to Your Grave oral history, and he says, after they got together the first or second time, Pete played me a recording. So like, and he also says they had no songs, no name, no drummer. So he's saying that Ben was not even, I mean, if that's to be taken literally.
No, that's incorrect. We had a 4-track demo that we recorded of 3 songs. And that's obviously the one that, you know, you can find still online probably. And we recorded that at Ben's house. Ben was like right away. Ben was the first. Ben joined basically right when I did. So there wasn't really there couldn't have been a lag time between. There was a period after Ben where we didn't, and before Mike Paraskevich, where we didn't really have a drummer. I mean, here's the reality of it. When you look at bands and like the way that, you know, somewhere online, it'll say that, you know, all these people were in the band or whatever. It really wasn't together yet. It wasn't really a band until it was the 4 of us. I'm not trying to be like wistful or discount the thing, you know,
No, I get what you're saying.
It was like we were still figuring it out, you know, and like Mike was awesome. Mike was a really good friend of mine. I haven't seen Mike in years. I hope he's great. But Mike, like, he was all the way down in Kankakee. Like, he wasn't really able to even really be part of it. So it was kind of a thing where he would, you know, show up, play the show, and then I wouldn't see him. You know, it wasn't really like we had. It was the 3 of us were the band, and then Andy joined. You know, like it's basically the way I see it. But you know,
that's cool.
Anyway. Sorry. But yeah, no. So there was we recorded. I remember recording on a boombox. Some of the early practices at Ben's house.
Maybe that's what Money was referring to then, and he was just misremembering some details. Also, here's the screenshot from the Patterson's website guest book, where you enter yourself and you say, yeah, a few corrections in case anyone cares. I'm not in a band called Dress to Thrill. I am, however, singing in a band called Short Story Unhappy Ending.
Yes, that was that I think was what I was lobbying for of the list. I didn't like that name either, but like, okay, so the show, and this must have been a few shows in. I can't remember what show it was. Maybe it was the second show.
Was it at Western Illinois University?
Might have been. Was that the show with Killing Tree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And Project Rocket.
Yes. So the second show was Killing Tree at Western Illinois. There weren't a lot of people there. It wasn't a huge show. And we had kind of decided on, and I know I've told the story a bunch of times, but now we have it now we have all of the documentation. We know exactly what we're talking about. Short Story Unhappy Ending had been the name that we had settled on, and we had this big list, and everybody had their picks, and no one liked any of them. And that was the one that we kind of like begrudgingly all accepted. And Pete went, yeah, so we're Short Story Unhappy Ending, and Tim, well, no, first I think it was somebody else shouted it out. I don't know to this day who shouted it out. They're like, nah, fuck that, you're Fall Out Boy. because it was one of those things that that our friends knew that was a name that was kicking around. And then picking up on that later, Tim, when Killing Free was playing, Tim thanked us as Fall Out Boy. He goes, "I want to thank Fall Out Boy," and everyone kind of laughed, like, you know, whatever. You guys don't get to pick your name, and that was it. And then it just stuck. So, but Short Story and Unhappy Ending was the name that we had kind of voted on, I think.
Good to know. I think it's you, Amal.
Yes. Before we
What was that? A 7-inch? There's that. I never saw that. That was never. We never made that.
Oh, really?
Huh? Yeah, we never made that.
Okay, because the person who bought it said that apparently the guy who made them, he was based in Chicago. He made 26 copies of this for you guys. It's your 3-song demo. And we're like, why does a band that's just starting out have like lathe cuts? And so it's definitely not you guys.
Yeah, no. The tape that we did was very much in the spirit of like the PDI thing, where I hand pressed record on the tape player, and we were cutting those covers out of at Kinko's and stuff, and I don't know how many we made of those, like 50 or something like that. And then the next thing we did was the Project Rocket split, basically. So we never had that. It would have been cool to have that. We never had that.
Okay, so. Got you. And this includes
In fact, sorry, just a point of order. I think I remember this because this was a big deal to me. This is a big deal to me. The first time I was ever pressed on vinyl, because all my bands that I've been in had done a 7-inch or something, but I wasn't in the band when they did it or whatever. That kind of thing happened. The first time I was ever pressed on vinyl ever was Island did a Autopilot Off split.
Yes.
And that was and I cherished that thing, like, I'm on vinyl, like whatever. So, but this would have been cool. I would have loved to have seen one of these, but.
Okay. Cool. Before I continue, I was wondering, Joey, do you want to maybe skip ahead to?
Yeah. We can skip ahead to the soul punk part. And also I feel bad for the person that bought this because they definitely got scammed. They were told it was real.
Well, I mean, it's cool. It's cool as shit, and it's
cool.
It's super cool. I mean, whatever, the tape is obscure as hell. My mom has one, I know.
Okay.
But
we wanted to get into soul punk. Obviously that got repressed literally a few days ago. Last time we talked, we discussed its reception and your relationship with it.
Repressed like a memory. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. And I wanted to bring this up again because at the time we were sort of unprepared to show you like what we think would be really cool to show you, which is the fan perspective, which you don't really get to always see. And so this main point is just to show you what fans think about it. Now, we were conceiving this right after we met with you, so we had no idea about that soul punk repressing. And so part of it, we have to now incorporate that into it. But here's just some random Twitter posts or Tumblr posts where people, when you were doing it for Medley, someone was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if Patrick did another soul punk song tonight for Medley to destroy us all? Happy 12th birthday, soul punk." And then a Twitter thread on this person's favorite lyrics, because they said he deserves some love too as a lyricist. So like just some random tweets about that, many of which we had to pick through and decide which ones to include. And then here's just some random fan art that we thought would be cool to show.
Oh man.
We got Daisy Art's wonderful drawing of you
Wow.
then and now.
That's really well done too. It's funny.
Yeah. And Twin Peach Co., wonderful person. They make a lot of like their own like t-shirts and standees and that type of stuff. So they made those, which are just, I find really cool. So this is Kay's art for her senior project at college. She had to design posters based on different art movements and also incorporate music into it. So she decided to do one of them as Soul Punk, and that painting. Okay, what is the painting called?
It's Nighthawks by Edward
That's
Hopper.
right. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then here's a another art. We just
and it incorporates the wow.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Rolling Tamayo, the cover of is that As Long as I Know I'm Getting Paid?
Yeah.
I remember what,
And yeah, we just wanted to include all these, particularly because a lot of these were posted recently.
Cool.
There is one of our moderators here who is just helping us record, has that tattoo. So we just thought we'd include that.
Wow. I don't know where they are, but I made, well, whatever. I had somewhere, I had tried to and never finished making a video for Spotlight that
that was going to be our question.
Oh, well, and I had these black light elements, and I sat down and painted the logos, the Soul Punk logo on like big boards, and I have those boards somewhere. I found them recently. I was going through boxes and I found them. I was going to say like, oh, I'll get them. I don't know where they are. They'll take an hour. But.
Well, we will definitely get into that in just a second. But these last two tweets, these were when the repressing was like teased by SmartPunk, and so people were just saying like, I'm so happy he feels good enough about Soul Punk to let it into the spotlight again. And then someone made a joke and said, somewhere today, Patrick Stump got the strange urge to wear fingerless gloves again. The silly little tweets. And that was all just, kind of, we said to you last time, like, oh, people really like the album now, but I figured like, we have the chance, we might as well show you that, show not tell. But that leads us directly into that music video.
Yes.
And so I will let Vicky take that.
So, yes, Katie. I would like to first and foremost say if we can't watch it, that is totally fine. What we were more curious about was, so we reached out to Joe Ween, and he said, me and Kay, and he had mentioned that we would not be allowed to watch it without Patrick's permission. We were like, okay, that's probably not going to happen. This was many moons ago now. But what we were curious about was there was an image on his website that had a photo of the video. Context, it is just a woman and a man on a stage. What we were wondering was, what was the premise of the video and why was it canceled?
I don't remember the premise exactly. I remember we did it in a like theater, and there was kind of a I don't remember my part like at all. I think I just played in the theater. And then Joe Joe's a great director, and he had an idea about this kind of dance thing. I can't remember though. And the way that it got canceled was the album kind of got canceled. That was towards the end of the promotional cycle. And basically I was sinking money into it, and the label had been fairly supportive, but they were like, we're not doing anything with this. And so it kind of just didn't happen. And I don't know that I ever saw a finished version of it because of that. I think by the time we had booked it, we shot it, and then somewhere during the like post-production process, it kind of just fizzled out, because that was the like, yeah, Patrick, this probably isn't going to work. One of the things was I had my band that were kind of waiting on me. They had other projects that were coming in, and it was like, should I wait for you, Patrick, because we're doing this, or is it okay if I go do this other thing, because there's been no movement. And it was kind of like, that was kind of like when I finally threw in the towel, I think was in the middle of this video. So
if you ever want to see it, it sounds like Joe still has a copy of some version of the finished product. So,
well, I'll ask him about it. That sounds cool. I'd love to see it.
All right. I will end this with one last piece of fan art that I thought was very cute.
That's sweet. I like that one.
And just my general reflection to end this on like a nice little positive note. So I was reflecting on the conversation we had about soul punk almost a year ago, and I had a big thought about it as an artist myself. You said that when you made soul punk, the final product didn't really reflect what you had envisioned for the project. That's kind of how you phrased it.
Yeah.
And that you were unhappy with that at the time. And in the moment, or well, right after we finished calling with you, I had the thought that like when I finish an art piece, I kind of never really view it as finished. Because you can go, and I know you know this, but you can go back and adjust it, remake it, add new meaning to it, and events throughout history change the context of it permanently. And I think that when you decided to embrace soul punk on stage, like with these recent tours, not really as like a failure, but instead of something you could sort of breathe new life into, it did that. It changed the context of it permanently. And sure, like the actual physical music on the record didn't change, but the general meaning of it and what it means to people and fans of Fall Out Boy and just fans of you changed. And, you know, the audience that loved it, you know, all along can love it more knowing that you're happy with it. And those who didn't like it back then can, you know, find a new meaning to, you know, look back at it with a different critical lens. And I think that, you know, kind of is like, with what we do as an archive is kind of encapsulates a lot of, you know, why I'm so happy to do what we do and why I find this important and fun and cool, because it, you know, I mean, we talk to so many people and, you know, bring up really good memories for people, and people are happy to revisit these memories and, or, you know, remember like, oh, I remember when I was in high school and did that thing. And so, yeah, I just think that your soul punk's great.
I'm glad it found a place. It was it's a weird, when people get the vinyl, I wrote a thing in there and it kind of sums it up, where I'm like super proud of it and then like super weirded out by it and all, you know, like whatever. It's all the things. It's like it's a, you know, so yeah, I'm glad it has a place. You know, it's weird. You know, I don't know. Soul punk was a passion project and a very, in that whole era, you know, Truant Wave too. And it's very, you know, it's a strange thing to like, because weird, you put so much of yourself into a thing, but then also I didn't, because it was like kind of a character. And I talked to last time about how there were like personal things that I couldn't really talk about, a family thing, and it wasn't something that I felt was my place to talk about. So then I had to like, all of a sudden I had to throw out all of my lyrics and most of the music and rewrite, and because I just needed the catharsis of like, hey, I'm grieving, but I can't talk about it. So like, how do I talk about, so everything's fictional, you know, it's like this entire, you know, except for cryptozoology, which kind of was added last, but I had to like put everything into like these weird narratives that were like, you know, miles away, like layers away from something that I was experiencing, you know, like make basically, you know, to find a way to like, because I didn't want it to ever be a thing that like, you know, like I said, it was a family thing that happened to somebody in my family, that I didn't want that to ever be public for, and you know, it was
right.
You know what I mean? So it was like I had to find a way to like, I am really hurt and really hurting. How do I put this into a piece of art without it being about that? You know,
Yeah.
So
That's
very
tough.
Yeah,
and I don't know if there's a great answer to that either, of like what you could even do. But
well, and that's what I think
yeah.
about this city, right? And
Yeah.
the impetus of that song was so dense. There were so many lyrics in that song, and then it got kind of funneled down into the simplest words, like the least words possible. And so it's really funny because I'm kind of embarrassed of that song, because now it's like it was like bleached of all of its meaning, but like there was so much in there. There was so much in there when I started it. It's just that I kind of, like I said, I couldn't talk about it, so whatever.
Yeah.
But,
and I'll be honest, this city, you know, I mean, I love the feature on it, and it's not a bad song by any means, but it is one of the weaker songs on the album, and you can tell that there was something more to it. Like you can, and I always assumed maybe it was the label, you know, they wanted to make
Well,
a
I mean, they did
single.
kind of like that. They liked that it was the easiest one, that it was the simplest
Right.
one. But
Right.
it became the simplest one because I had to
change.
Again, I had to, yeah, because I didn't assume that I would ever be a famous person. And then when I did, the last thing I assumed was that would happen to my, that anyone would know my family or anything, right? So
Right.
then something awful happens, and you're like, well, I don't want that to be related to, I don't want that to be a public thing. I accidentally chose to be a public figure. I didn't choose for that to be a public thing. So then as an artist, you're trying to you deal with that, and you're like, how do I say these things? And then it kind of, that's what that was. There were some pluses and minuses, some successes and failures, and one of them is a song like This City, where I hid it behind so many layers that it didn't mean anything anymore. It became a song about, hey, I like my city. Cool.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever.
But I mean, yeah, but hey, I mean, always brings in more potential for an even crazier second sophomore album to send.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. Is it too long is it too long a gap between records? I don't know.
It's not.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to say is that now I'm in this place where I'm like, okay, so there's one dot on the map. There's soul punk, and it's a very specific thing. If I ever make another record, it'll be nothing like that. It'll be not even related to that. That's weird to me, where I'm like, well, that's a thing. Could I even put it out under my own name or something? Would I have to have a project or something? You know what I mean? Because it would be, if I did something musically totally different, what does that do to soul punk and the audience that likes that record? I don't want to imply in any way that I don't want to do that, but it's I'm also a bit older than that record now, so it would be disingenuous of me to make the same kind of thing. So it's kind of a challenge. I have a lot of music, but I don't know what will ever happen with it, because I'm like, do I do another? I don't know. I can't really do another soul punk. So what would it be? And I'm also sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, you can't do another soul funk, but I mean, artists that you look up to, Prince, Bowie, were their discographies perfect? No. I mean, in the sense of clean cut, every album has the most focused, path and trajectory.
Yeah.
I don't think any great artist can perfect that, and I don't think that should be the point. I think that you should just make what you want to make.
Yeah, well, we'll see if I have the time.
That's true. Yeah.